Mirror's Edge Catalyst is the direct sequel to Mirror's Edge, a fan favorite in the gaming community. A gorgeous aesthetic and engaging parkour made the first game an instant classic back in the day. Since then, fans have been begging DICE for a sequel for years, literally celebrating every small trailer or information the developers shared with us at gaming conventions or in interviews. Now, almost 6 years later, DICE has released a worthy successor. But is it really? Without any further ado, I'm Nexxi and this is Mirror's Edge Catalyst. Mirror's Edge Catalyst was, like the first title, published by EA and developed by Digital Illusions Creative Entertainment, or commonly known as DICE. You may have heard of them. They are the guys responsible, for I don't know, one of the biggest franchises in gaming. Battlefield? Yeah, those guys. Their early days were not so glorious, however. Operating in a small dorm room in 1992, they created mostly pinball games for the Amiga, which, fair enough, were quite successful. After those, DICE developed mostly racing games like NASCAR Heat or Swedish Touring Car Championship. In 2002, finally, history was made with the release of Battlefield 1942. Met with overwhelming praise, DICE has been working on this franchise for over a decade now, becoming one of the most respected developer studios along the way. In 2008, they reached another milestone with the creation of the Frostbite engine, which currently is one of the most advanced and graphically impressive engines out there. Today, DICE has established themselves as a powerhouse in game development and is basically the poster child of EA. Will Mirror's Edge Catalyst be yet another title on their long list of accomplishments, or did they miss the mark on this one? Let's find out. So before we delve right into this review, let's quickly glance over how it's structured and how we'll finally rate the game. The video will be split in 5 categories, namely technology, gameplay, story, presentation and content. In each category, the game can score anywhere between 1 to 5 stars. At the end of the video, we'll be analyzing our findings of each category to score the game in the most objective manner possible. The amount of stars does not directly translate into the final score, they are just there to represent the strengths and weaknesses of the game. What's more, you can also skip straight to the section that interests you the most, even straight to my verdict if you're a bit short on time, where I quickly summarize the review and give out the final score. Additionally, you have 2 arrows at the bottom left and right respectively, with which you can easily navigate my review if you, for example, wish to skip to a certain part or go back to a previous category. Alright, that's it. Thank you for your time and I hope you enjoyed the video. While DICE may have had some hiccups in the past, looking at you Battlefield 4, I'm happy to report that Mirror's Edge doesn't fall into the same category as well. I didn't come across any bugs or glitches. You do get a finished product here. I mean, as you well fucking should. But you know, in this day and age with some developers, that's really not a given anymore. Yeah. The game did crash once though after I installed the latest Nvidia drivers, but remained totally stable for the rest of my playthrough. Now, the game may be bug free, but that still doesn't make it a very smooth experience. First of all, the game is very demanding. Unless you own the latest generation Nvidia cards, namely the 1080 or even the 1070, playing on Hyper will bring your machine to its knees. I own 2 tight necks running an SLI on a 4040p monitor, and in some areas I barely get 45 to 50 FPS. Now, Those areas are the exception, sure, but you'd think two Titans would manage to get a solid 60 FPS at least. Which actually brings me to my second point. The SLI scaling in this game is horrible, and those problematic areas gain maybe 10 to 15 FPS by activating SLI, which is an increase in performance of sometimes not even 30%. My dual Titan X actually perform worse than a single 1080 in this game, which just shouldn't happen. The cards are rarely at the 90% load range as well, mostly lingering at 70% load each. Looking at the CPU, a similar picture. I really don't think my system is bottlenecking my cards, and judging by some forum posts online, the SLI profile does really seem to just suck ass. In game, you also have massive FPS swings, depending where you are and how much is going on screen, of course. My cards reached 100 FPS in some areas, but also dropped down to the 45 in the aforementioned problematic ones. The game looks spectacular, sure, but still it doesn't feel very optimized. There is room for improvement. Another thing that bothered me was the AI in this game. Let's just put aside the fact that the AI seems a little bit too passive. That's maybe more of a gameplay design thing, and we'll be taking a closer look on that later. The worst thing for me personally is that none of the enemies in the game are able to chase you at all. And I mean at all. Even the most elite soldiers in this game can be outmaneuvered by simply climbing up a small wall or jumping over a fence.
Do you honestly think you're fucking funny? Seriously. You're a fucking ugly little cunt, mate, and if I ever see you, I'm gonna
It's laughable, really. I understand that the basic soldiers or even some advanced ones are maybe not that mobile, but the most elite class that specializes in hand-to-hand combat, really? You really shouldn't be able to shake them off that easily. It's like fighting toddlers, man. In this regard, I feel the enemies in games like Assassin's Creed are handled much better. Even though they are stupid as rocks as well, you don't feel like an unbeatable demigod just because you jumped over a small edge. Well, let's quickly take a look at the settings menu before we wrap this section up. In the controls section, you can adjust your mouse or controller sensitivity as well as change the button scheme for your controller. Additionally, you can rebind all hotkeys in the game to any button on your mouse or keyboard. The game is very enjoyable on both though, either on controller or your mouse and keyboard setup. Although I would recommend that you rebind the crouch hotkey, or you will be finding yourself accidentally pressing the Windows key a lot. In the gameplay options, you can customize your runner's vision. It's basically a little sprite that tells you which way to go if you're lost. It's set on full, but I would recommend you to switch it to classic. You can also switch it off completely. The difference between all three modes is that on full, the sprite shows up all the time and all the relevant objects you need to climb are marked red, showing you exactly where you need to go. On classic, only the red objects are visible at all times. The sprite only shows up when you press the hotkey to do so. On off, you get no helper at all. No path is marked and no sprite will show up even by pressing the hotkey. I feel like classic is the perfect sweet spot here, being challenging enough so you feel a sense of accomplishment when you find the right path, but still having the option to call upon the sprite in really frustrating areas. Other than the runner's vision adjustment, you can also choose to show or hide various elements, like the crosshair, subtitles, or even enemy health bars. In the audio options menu, there is really nothing worth mention. You can change the volume of the game or the music and set the output from surround to stereo. The video options are also quite straightforward. You can change the FOV from a tunnel vision like 60 to a 90. Playing on the highest FOV though, you notice that the side of the screen gets stretched a lot, as well as that the arms of Faith get a little bit long. You can also find the resolution and graphic settings, as well as an option to super sample the game by twice your current resolution. Considering how demanding the game is already, this setting is better left untouched. Other than all that, you can watch the credits if that's like, you know, your thing, or set if DICE is allowed to collect your in-game data and crash reports. If you want to start all over again, there is an option for that too. In the sense you want to replay the game, not get back with your ex. I'm sorry, there's no option for that. I mean, that ship has sailed, man, and it's probably all your fault too. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. That should be it with the settings. I mean, DICE doesn't leave you with a lot of tweaks here, but you know, it gets the job done. So, to sum this section up, Catalyst is bug-free and works as intended. I didn't get stuck anywhere on the map, the missions too worked flawlessly. The NPCs didn't glitch out to the point where you couldn't finish your objectives. The game has an insatiable hunger for GPU horsepower though, but doesn't handle SLI scaling well at all. A rather deadly mix. I mean, 2 Titan X shouldn't be outperformed by a single GTX 1080, by a single anything really. The AI, ignoring how passive it is rather limited in its mobility and intelligence. Even the strongest enemy type doesn't instill any sense of fear or respect, especially so when he's as agile as an English bulldog. So, technology-wise it's definitely a solid display, just lacks a bit of the finishing touch. One of the main things that made the first Mirror's Edge so great and memorable was its first-person parkour, never seen like that in a game before. Did DICE possibly improve this concept without losing the feel and soul of the original title? Yes. Yes, they fucking did. The climbing is as simple, responsive and fun as ever. The map design is also as clever and challenging as it was in the first one, actually even more so. There are mostly multiple paths to get to your destination. Only when playing missions or going from one city district to another are you limited to one route, which is actually one of the biggest and best differences to the first title. Catalyst is fully open world. You can freely roam the city, get lost in its beautiful environment, or go do some side activities and try to climb a difficult area. You're free to play the game at exactly the pace you like, whether you want to rush the main missions or just go explore and take it all in. You're not limited in any way. I mentioned the climbing being as good as ever. The mechanics remained mostly the same, as they should, they are just fantastic. It's super simple to get into, but getting the timings right can sometimes be a little bit tricky. They also freshen up the mechanics by a couple of abilities Faith can use now. There's the grappling hook, with which Faith can swing between buildings, use it to elevate to greater heights, or pull out barricades to create new paths. You sadly cannot use the hook freely. It's only helpful in designated areas, mostly when entering a new district. Sometimes the climbing can be a bit clumsy. Faith wall running when she shouldn't or not grabbing onto ledges are just some examples. Those moments are very rare though and don't taint the gameplay at all. The combat system has also been massively improved. It's still not very challenging but offers a lot more variety. The kicks and punches feel heavy and satisfying, like there is true force behind them. You can interact with your surroundings to defeat the enemy. For example, you can use walls to build up momentum with a wall run and then finish your move with a flying kick. You can also kick enemies over railings or into each other, dealing bonus damage or in some instances even instantly knocking them out. The combat has been much improved compared to the first game, but still leaves a bit to be desired. For example, I feel the game assists you too much with the directional kicks that send your opponents flying. It's just a bit too easy kicking someone over a railing, even while he seems to lost all momentum of the initial hit. Another thing that I mentioned before actually was the AI being too passive. You walking into a room with 6 soldiers, 2 of them being elite, should have you worried. Nope. Not here. Faith the Bulldozer can take an army all by herself, it seems, stomping and steamrolling anyone who dares stand in her way. Looking around, you can catch the soldiers taking their turns attacking you, Assassin's Creed style basically, making any number advantage they had literally useless. Ranged enemies on top of it refuse to shoot you while you stand near one of their allies, even with a totally clear line of sight. I would have really wished for a hunter type enemy that is a bitch to defeat, so you need to run out of sight while he chases you relentlessly. So now that we know the basics, what can we actually do in Catalyst? For starters, you can play through the main missions. They are fun and well designed, providing you with some narrative and cool action scenes. Then you have your side missions, which usually involve you collecting things, racing against the clock, or sometimes even breaking in and stealing something. They also provide you with a little bit of dialogue, but are a lot less spectacular than the main missions naturally. If you're tired of those, you can also do a couple of side activities. One of them is Dash, where you need to reach point B in the quickest time possible. What's interesting here is that you don't have to follow the marked route, you just have to get to point B as fast as possible, whichever way you like. The second one is Delivery. Here you must deliver a package to point B before the time is up. Some packages are fragile, so when you receive fall damage they break. Other packages are top secret and you're not allowed to be seen delivering them. Some are neither and have no restrictions at all. If you fail to deliver the package on time, you have to start all over again. The third one is called Diversion. You basically need to run from one group of Kruger-sec guards to another before the time runs out. You do this to distract them so the person who gave you the mission can do some shady shit unhindered. Yet another side activity is Security Hub. Your goal here is to destroy an antenna and then successfully escape Kruger-sec guards in the process. Those antennas are guarded by 4 of them, so you have to deal with them first. By far my favorite and one that actually does reap a benefit though is Grid Node Infiltration. Here you break into a massive server room that is equipped with motion detecting lasers. Your goal is to get to the top of the room without triggering any of them. Once you have successfully hacked the grid node located at the top, you unlock quick travel to the nearest safe house in that area, saving you from long runs throughout the city. The last side activity provided by the developers is Billboard Hack. Here you need to find a way up a difficult to reach billboard and then replace the advertisement with your logo. It is very similar to Grid Node Infiltration, just a little bit less lasers. You additionally have 2 user-created activities, which you can also create yourself. One is called beat.l.e. I don't know how it's pronounced. It's basically a checkpoint of some sort. These are located at either very difficult to reach places or in areas where the view is very beautiful. You just go up to them and check in, that's it. The last activity is Time Trial, where a user can set up multiple checkpoints throughout the map. The goal of the challengers is then to go through all of the checkpoints in the fastest time possible. The order and the route is not important, just the time. I don't know if you can call it a side activity per se, but occasionally, anywhere on the map, a runner will be attacked by 2 Kruger-sec guards. You can choose to interfere or simply ignore it. Stepping in and rescuing the runner rewards you with some EXP, but other than that, nothing more. That basically covers all the side activities, missions, and basically everything you can do in this game. It sounds like a lot, but trust you me when I say it is not. New in Catalyst are also some RPG elements here and there. You earn EXP, as I mentioned earlier, by doing all kinds of tasks in the game. Be it beating up some poor Kruger-secs, climbing your way through an area, or gathering collectibles which are spread all around the city. Once you reach enough EXP, you receive an ability point, which you can use to unlock abilities in the 3 skill trees. I like that they added that in the game. It's cool to have some sort of progression where your character gets stronger and more capable throughout the game. The gameplay of Catalyst is everything the original was and more. It is fun, it comes naturally, and now it's even more polished. The combat system has been majorly improved but still lacks quite some substance. That's partly due to the enemies being basically walking punching bags. The side activities are challenging and fun, although I see you getting bored with them after a while. Gameplay wise, Catalyst really is everything Mirror's Edge fans have been hoping for, at least for me. Before I start rambling about the story, there will be obviously major spoilers ahead. So if you haven't played the game yet, I would recommend you skip to the summary of this section, which is totally spoiler free. Click here to avoid spoilers. You have been warned. Let's first talk about the things I really enjoyed here, so this section doesn't get flooded by the negativity that's about to come. The setting of this game is nothing short of fantastic. The world is very immersive and believable. Every corner has something cool and interesting to see. You can get lost in this world so easily and catch yourself wishing to be there at that very moment. The backstory of the game is also very rich and quite interesting actually. Basically, it's set in an alternate world where huge wars were raging globally. Civilizations fell and whole cities were wiped off the face of the planet. Not much is known of that time, as almost all of the societies and their knowledge were annihilated during warfare. After the conflict stopped, the little towns and villages that survived started rebuilding and returning life back to normal. This period was known as the Great Regression. This state lasted for decades, maybe a century even, until one day the rise of Omnistat were to change the world completely. Their ideals are comparable to the USSR we know, and they quickly started gaining size as many of the small villages and towns joined their cause. Sometimes peacefully, sometimes not. Their beliefs were not accepted everywhere though. Many towns and villages were constantly in unrest, disregarding Omnistat and their authority. Finally, all hell broke loose when major families that wielded great power within the nation revolted against Omnistat. Civil wars raged for years, but stopped when Omnistat eventually agreed to form 3 different independent nations. Omnistat was the first and by far the largest of the 3. The second largest was to become Cascadia, where both games actually take place, and the third was called Sabaeus, a nation founded on religious texts of obscure origins. Originally, the rebelling families planned to establish Cascadia as a fair democratic society, but soon enough, they grew power-hungry and changed their beliefs into more selfish ones. They twisted the political system in their favor in every way they could, leading to them basically dominating 80% of the free market in Cascadia. They totally disregard their people. The lower class had no education, no proper healthcare, and a miserable quality of life. Unrest grew until eventually protests were held in the City of Glass. What started as a peaceful demonstration transformed into a full-blown riot once shots were fired suddenly. Hundreds of people died, more than 2,000 people were injured, and massive damage was done to the city. After the protest was shattered, the family shifted all the blame to the protesters, gaining even more support by the middle and especially upper classes, who were just upset about the destruction caused in the city. The families put in place even more oppressive laws, gaining even more control and leading to the tyrannical regime we are confronted with in the game. Now you will think that with this kind of backstory, the main one is surely gonna be just as good. Oh, Jesus fucking Christ, how wrong can you be? No, it isn't. From weak characters, to unexplored storylines, to unsatisfying endings, even to bad writing. This game has it all. Where to start? Now, let's begin with the writing, shall we? It is so bland, it's almost painful. Plastic is so socially inept, she must have severe mental issues. Noah couldn't be any more stereotypical father figure, even if the writers tried. Isabel Kruger is a total fucking mess, like I'm not even going there. Her father, Gabriel Kruger, is like the cliché bad guy. The best villains in film or games you can somewhat relate to, or at least understand them, but you never even get to see or hear his perspective on any happenings in the game. He is just evil, oppressive and power hungry for the sake of it. Faith, the main character in the game, is not better either. She seems so overpowered, defeating armies of enemies, breaking into unbreakable laboratories and buildings, escaping every trap the bad guy lays. You never fear for her well-being, always on top, always in control. The characters have their purpose, you understand why they are there, but they are just not written well. None of the characters evoke any emotions, or not the ones that they are supposed to do. Even confronted with big losses, you really couldn't care less. Noah's death left you ice cold. The raid on the Runners HQ left you ice cold. You never get enough of the characters to build up any kind of emotion. Now, okay, I understand. Not every game needs to be The Last of Us, Life is Strange, or even Spec Ops: The Line. But Mirror's Edge is not lighthearted fun either. It's nothing. It's literally nothing. You start the game with nothing and finish the game with nothing. Like, there is not one memorable character in this game. Not one single line that will stick to you after you play through it. From a narrative standpoint, it just has nothing to offer. The voice acting is also just a little bit off. It just doesn't sound natural at all, as if we hear two people having a monologue instead of an actual conversation. I don't know if you can catch my drift.
Art, Faith, art.
Yeah? Could have fooled me.
Funny. Did you just come here to crush my self-esteem, or are you up for some actual work?
Sorry. I'm up.
Good.
The plot twist you see coming from a mile away. The big reveal leaves you totally cold, and the ending couldn't be any more anticlimactic. Like, I don't know what the fuck they thought, but it's so unsatisfying, it's not even funny. Story-wise, besides the amazing setting and this huge backstory, Mirror's Edge has almost nothing going for it in this category. Like, you won't be bored by the story, that's not what I'm trying to say, but it's just unsatisfying, really. It's just unsatisfying. If I could describe the story of Mirror's Edge and its characters in one single word, it will definitely be forgettable. So, one thing is for sure, Mirror's Edge Catalyst surely won't be remembered by its story. The characters are weak, the writing seems a little bit off, and the voice acting is rather unnatural. They never expand on the characters, many storylines left unfinished or even unexplored. The setting is remarkable, the backstory is rich and very interesting, but all that cannot save Catalyst's poor performance in this category. Alright, so for presentation we have a completely reversed picture, like, wow. I'll start with the few negatives before I cream my fucking pants about how good this game looks and sounds. One thing that I don't like that games do more and more these days is totally skip the title screen. Like, you can start up the game, it knocks you straight into gameplay, even on first launch. You basically don't have the possibility to tweak and set up the graphics and sound settings before the game starts. I don't understand why developers do this, especially on first launch. I somewhat understand it if I was playing on console, but not on PC. Otherwise, there are some minor issues like clunky cutscenes pre-rendered to 30 FPS. They come off a little bit laggy, but you know, you can judge for yourself. Occasionally, some very low-res textures will pop up, but it's very rarely and more of an exception than a rule. Facial animations also could have been handled a lot better. I mean, with their wooden faces, they sometimes look like psychopaths staring directly into your soul. Finally, the voice acting sometimes would screw up and be a little bit out of sync, leading to characters talking over each other kinda unnatural. But enough of the few insignificant negatives. Let's talk about what this game does well. I have to say, personally, the world DICE has created here is one of the most aesthetically pleasing and interesting I've ever seen in any game ever. The beautiful vibrant colors matched with the sleek black and pearl white is just a sight to be seen. The urban areas look gorgeous. I have yet to see a more beautiful crafted and vibrant city than the City of Glass. I cannot count how many times I stopped dead in my tracks just to take in the beautiful view. I am absolutely blown away by the visuals in this game. It is one of the best looking games out there today. Frostbite engine once more proving its worth. The art style is also fantastic. The clothes of the characters, the furniture of buildings, the design of the public areas, it's just breathtakingly beautiful. Everything seems believable. Walking through this world, you can get lost in it so easily. And as if all that wasn't enough, everything is underlined by a beautiful choice of music. It fits every scene and situation so well, setting you in the right mood and always evoking the right feelings. Responsible for the tracks is Solar Fields, who also created the music for the first game. This man is just brilliant. I absolutely love his work in both of these games. The lighting effects and reflections in this game left me with my mouth hanging open. Look at this area and how the light reflects on each surface, it's just unbelievable. What's more, DICE uses a technology called global illumination. It is used in animated movies and films all the time, but it is very taxing on the hardware and couldn't be used so far in games. It's basically when light reflects off a surface and lights up an area that is not directly exposed to it. What it also does is reflect the color of one surface on top of another. What I mean by all this can be seen here. Do you notice how the light bouncing off this orange wall is tinting the white wall in orange as well? These walls are actually white, being influenced by the light that reflects off the orange objects. It's a small little detail but adds so much to the scenery. Here you can see the same effect with a pink wall too. All around the map there are cool little details that make the world come alive, like these cute little window cleaners scattered all around the city. It's a nice little thing that kinda explains how these huge skyscrapers look so damn clean all the time. There is dynamic lighting in this game as well, so day and night cycle while you're completing objectives in the City of Glass. The city at night is also a sight to be seen. The map is also designed quite well, showing off the beautiful skyline of the city while still being very easy to navigate. You can set a marker anywhere on the map and navigate the route with the help of your runner vision. The HUD is also super minimalistic. The game could theoretically be played without one completely though, since the gameplay is super simple in its design. I mean, besides the health, there really wasn't anything more that could have been displayed, really. The menus are very nice too. Easy to navigate, easy to grasp and well structured. Beside the fact that you cannot access the title screen, I am very happy with the way they handled the menus. I don't know what else to say. I don't even know if anything else needs to be said. This game looks like a fucking Picasso. It really, it looks stunning. It's designed really well. It sounds amazing. Simply one of the best looking around. Just from a graphical standpoint, this game is a must play. If you enjoy stunning visuals and have the hardware to run this beast at max settings, which is actually the important part, you simply have to play it eventually. State of the art. So we're slowly coming to an end here. Last section, content. The game's main storyline and all the side missions take around 8 to 10 hours to complete. There are 15 main and 13 side missions. Additionally, you have a couple of side activities with which you can also kill a few hours. They are well designed and quite challenging sometimes, but I can imagine them getting old after a while. There is not much to do after the main story is over though. You can explore the city a bit, try to do some community time trials, or even go hunting for the over 600 collectibles scattered all around the map. But, you know.
Ain't nobody got time for that!
Gameplay wise, it's just not enough though. I mean, to truly 100% the game, it will probably not even take 20 hours. I think maybe proper multiplayer would keep this game fresh for considerably longer, but I don't know how difficult that is to implement and even how well it would work with this type of game. I mean, it works for Dying Light, but you know, Mirror's Edge is a little bit lacking on the zombie aspect, so you know. Currently, there haven't been any DLC announced or even released, so it remains unclear if the game will receive more content in the future. For now though, for around $60, in my personal opinion, you are not getting enough, at all. The main storyline will keep you entertained for the entirety of its duration, but it falls short heavily, like shockingly so. It's especially shocking considering the game was designed to be carried by its story alone. I mean, if that wasn't the case, it would surely offer a lot more replayability or some cooler side activities, because as it stands now, content-wise, this game is lacking left, right and center. I mean, the gameplay is fantastic, as well as the visuals. I mean, especially the visuals, but it really lacks substance. It doesn't have enough depth. As an experience, the game is absolutely fantastic. I mean, I would recommend anyone to give it a try. You know, to experience it, to see the world, to see the gameplay. But from a gamer's perspective, who likes to get the most bang out of his buck, who likes to experience a great story, who likes just to be blown away, and especially left with something, left with a message, left with a feeling, left with anything really, I would say that no, you should not pick this game, not for this price. This is atrocious. Wait for it to at the very least drop half the current price, or even rent the game if that's an option for you. There is simply not enough game in the motherfucking game. Not worth $60. So let's sum it all up, give the game a final rating and be done with this review. Mirror's Edge is kinda a double-edged sword. It does a lot of good things, but it also does a lot of bad things. For starters, you at least get a functional product. There are no major bugs or glitches that I personally have come across in around 12 to 13 hours of game time. But the massive FPS swings and bad SLI support leave a lot to be desired. Gameplay wise, this game is truly a worthy successor to the original. It does everything the original did, even better. The climbing is simple and fun, the combat has been much improved and the open world is really what this game needed. But the enemies are a little bit on the stupid side and absolutely no challenge. The story in Mirror's Edge Catalyst was forgettable, at best, at best, with weak characters and very anticlimactic ending. But the setting and atmosphere of the City of Glass is very well done. The whole world feels very believable and makes it rather easy to lose yourself in it. The biggest strength of Catalyst has to be presentation though. From just breathtaking visuals to a fantastic choice of music, there is not much the game does wrong in this regard. It is one of the best looking games out there today, and I can imagine experiencing this on a VR headset would blow your fucking mind. But considering how well this game runs on a single monitor, in my setup, rendering two separate images, I mean, no, we're far away, at least a couple generations. Content-wise though, Catalyst doesn't have much to offer. The main storyline is finished in a very quick 8 to 10 hours, and the side activities, while fun and challenging at first, can get old rather fast. As it stands right now, it just doesn't justify a $60 purchase at all, not even near. Alright, I hear you. The first game had its issues as well, from a very short campaign to even less content to a arguably weaker gameplay. The real question here is Catalyst the sequel we all hoped it would be? I would say yes, it is. It does everything the first game did, just even better. The gameplay and aesthetic of the game alone makes it a must-have for Mirror's Edge fans. But just like the first game, it lacks substance. It has considerably more than the first, but you know, compared to other games, it's simply not enough. If the game was released at a, I don't know, $30 or even $20 price tag, we would be seeing a lot of 9s and 10s flying around. As it stands right now, it's just too meager a display. For me, a very solid 8 out of 10 still. Gold award with a presentation seal of excellency.